reporters Tom Lobianco and Stephen Collinson. Good morning to you again. And Tom, I want to start with what we're hearing from Senator John McCain, who has expressed a bit of pushback against this potential pick. Let's listen.
I have obviously concerns of reports of his relationship with Vladimir Putin, who is a thug and a murderer. And we will have hearings, and that issue and other issues concerning him will be examined, and then it's the time to make up your mind as to whether to vote yes or no.
So what kind of questions would you ask Rex Tillerson that would make you feel comfortable about him in a role like that?
His view of Vladimir Putin and his role in the world, and for example, the fact that Boris Nemtsov, who was the leader of the opposition, was murdered on the orders, I believe, of Vladimir Putin in the shadow of the Kremlin.
Well, Rex Tillerson has expressed some affinity for Vladimir Putin, has received back in 2013 the Order of Friendship from the Russian government. Tom, are we looking ahead to a contentious confirmation fight for Tillerson at this post?
Yeah, well, it's clear. I mean, look, there is one of the senior Republicans inside the Senate there, a man who was the 2008 nominee for the party, saying in pretty clear terms that he's got some problems with the guy who looks like will be Donald Trump's Secretary of State. I mean, this isn't, a backbencher. This is not a freshman lawmaker. This is a guy with a ton of standing, and specifically in this policy area. So yeah, I think that does portend some problems going forward. I think it kind of speaks to this broader issue of Congress probably serving as a check on some of the, I don't want to say some of the wilder picks, but some picks where maybe Trump might be a little bit less traditional, going outside the bounds a little bit more. Yeah. He's not going to have a good time with this one, I think.
One of those picks, Michael Flynn, for a national security advisor, of course, that doesn't require Senate confirmation, but there were some questions about if he were put up for another position, if he'd get through the confirmation hearings. Stephen, right. Let me come to you. Give us an idea of potentially the coalition that needs to be put together if this is going to be stopped or to be challenged in the Senate, because we see John McCain has some serious concerns.
Right. You would have to, for this not to go through, you would have to get some kind of alliance between the more hawkish Republican senators, those who have expressed concern about Vladimir Putin, his intervention, not just alleged intervention in the election, but his policies towards Ukraine, the annexation of Crimea, and his posture in Europe. You're thinking about people like Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio potentially, as well as John McCain. Democrats will oppose this nomination, first of all, because it's Donald Trump's nomination. They're looking for a way to, take a shot at the new administration. Already concerns are being expressed among environmentalists that this would be, in effect, a tantamount to a takeover of American foreign policy by big oil. Yeah. I think there will also be questions about supposed conflicts of interest. After all, the new Secretary of State will have represented Exxon Mobil for many years. He would have to divorce himself completely from the company and, take on U.S. diplomacy. It's possible that, for instance, lifting sanctions against Russia that were imposed over the annexation of Crimea could benefit Exxon Mobil. So there's real big questions here that are really going to come to the fore ahead of the confirmation process early next year.
Hey, Tom, let me come to you on this issue of climate change that Stephen just brought up. We know that Donald Trump over the years has been in many different places on climate change, saying he's not a big believer in a man-made influence. And recently he said that he would stay with the Paris Pact on climate change after saying he would go against it. Here's what Rex Tillerson has said about climate change not so long ago.
Well, there's no question the climate is changing, and that's never been up for debate. I think the real question that's driving a lot of policy is to what extent are human activities and industrial activities and our consumption of energy contributing to that change.
After we saw the potential nomination or the pending nomination of Scott Pruitt to head up the EPA, how does a Rex Tillerson fit into what we're learning about a Trump administration's approach to climate change and the environment?
Well, you know, what's interesting about the answer he gave just there is that that's kind of the code word that's used by the opposition, the code language that's used there on this issue, right? So if you're in the energy sector, if you're in the traditional fossil fuel sector, that's kind of the way that you talk about this issue, as opposed to environmentalists, maybe some more, you know, Democrats, more liberal folks would talk about this issue. It's kind of the language is a little softening, but it's still fundamentally opposed to what the Obama administration has done, which is place these caps on emissions through executive action. I don't think there's any expectation that Trump won't roll back those executive actions. He doesn't have to do this through Congress. You know, he doesn't. I was covering this back in 2009, the climate change bill. You know, it's easy to forget that. You know, when Obama came in, he had similar numbers of Democrats, and it looked to be in a very similar position of power. And you know, Democrats were talking about climate change as like the third that they were going after. I mean, of course, that died in 2010. So, you know, it's kind of fascinating to look at it now. But I think what will happen is executive action, rollback of the Obama executive actions. Yeah. And it looks to be the case right now.
All right, Tom LoBianco, Stephen Collinson. We'll continue to learn about Rex Tillerson as he appears to be the lead contender for Secretary of State. Thank you both.